Hey, what's up? It's John Samuel, and welcome to All Access Live. We are back. It's been way too long, and Happy New Year to everyone. And today we got a very special episode because we got two of my favorite people. We got Jason Gillikin and we got Sean Maroney, the people behind the audiobook of Don't Ask a Blind Guy for Directions. So what's up, fellas? Welcome to the show.
John, thank you so much.
Great to see you.
I know. I'm so excited to see y'all. It's been way too long. I feel like, right before we were just talking about the whole process of making the audiobook and, just kind of us being together in that studio at American Underground, which was so fun and super cool. And Sean and I even made it up on the Wall of Fame. And but we'll get into that. But first I want to let the audience get to know who y'all are. So Jason, could you start off and kind of talk about your your journey into audio production?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into podcasting back in 2017. My company is called Earfluence. Officially started that in 2019, and we do podcasts for businesses in this area like Raleigh Magazine and NC State, UNC, Duke. We do some outside of the region like the PGA. And then we'll do some audiobooks from time to time if the right opportunity presents itself. And the right opportunity definitely presented itself with John Samuel's book. And so we were honored to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason. It was awesome to, when I was thinking about doing it, you were the first one I turned to. So awesome
Thank
to
you.
have you. And Sean, the voice.
Hey, Johnny. Yes, this was the perfect marriage of my 20-year working career, kind of leading up to us being able to partner on this, and I'm very grateful. 15 years in broadcast journalism, and the past 5 years I've been with Habitat for Humanity of Wake County. I'm still in the affordable housing space. I'm on the board of A Place at the Table, and it was just amazing to be able to get back behind a microphone. So a great microphone, as you can hear with where Jason is. They are top notch with their equipment, but also to continue our friendship and hanging out together, Johnny, since I met you when you were the recipient of the TBJ 40 under 40 all those years ago.
Yes.
And you showed up early to a Habitat build site. And I was blown away upon first meeting you, and then the fact that you were at every recording session for this book really made it special for me, and I know for Jason, and I know for Mark on his team.
Yeah, for sure. Because when I reached out, Jason, I reached out to you to kind of get to see if you were on board. Because when I was talking to Jason, I said, I was like, it would be amazing to have Sean do this. And the reason that it was special to me to ask you was, like you said, we got to meet each other on the site of a Habitat build, which was just great in itself. But, you ended up taking me home that day after the site build, rather than taking an Uber. You say, hey man, you're not taking an Uber, I'll take you home. And we got to spend 30 minutes from Headingham area it was over there. And not Headingham, but over on,
we were over in Southeast Raleigh.
Yeah, Southeast Raleigh. And you were like, we got to get to know each other in that car ride. And it was just a really kind of sweet moment of you and I having that one-on-one conversation, getting to know each other and understanding each other, having these international backgrounds and coming back to North Carolina and meeting here at that site. And then you invited me to come and speak at the dedication. And that was such a great experience. And then when I was doing my TED Talk, you were the MC. And it was really cool because after my TED Talk, you actually spent another 5 minutes just talking about me, which was and just your experience. And I thought that was just you got to see me in a personal experience and a professional one. And that's why I made it a no-brainer if we were able and lucky to get you to do this. And you graciously said yes. So thank you, Sean.
Well, you're entirely too kind, but it means a lot. And there was and we've all talked about this from my perspective. There was a heavy sense of responsibility in being the voice for your story, your audiobook. I was very cognizant that our life experiences are very different. Set aside your visual impairment and me being visually, there. We look very different. We both grew up in the Cary area, so there is that. But
yeah,
as I'm reading early on about your experience, in your words, as a brown student in a predominantly white area, I didn't want to not be as respectful as I could to your life experience. And so the fact that you trusted me and you kind of alleviated my, concerns about doing that was very special. And it was just a powerful opportunity too. When we first met at the fabled Starbucks, where it gets featured in your book, to talk about this, and you presented to me I presented to you the first manuscript printed out. That was the first time you had held it, and that was cool. But it was also really neat just to talk about where your headspace was at all these different exciting moments in your life, because it really, not only were you being so open and trusting with the audience and those who know you, but you were really putting on full display your growth as a person, as a young man, as a boy, to where you are today. And Jason, at the end we were talking about, okay, this feels like a book one in a series, because he's lived so much life since the end of where we leave things off in your book right now.
Yeah,
that'd be great. It's funny, when John, you and I spoke and we said, well, what about Sean? What about getting Sean to do it? I was like, I'll contact him on LinkedIn and see what happens. And I didn't know Sean very well. We had met at a TBJ 40 under 40 event, and he got back to me right away and was just flowing with emotion, even in a LinkedIn message, saying that he would be so honored to tell your story. And I think you have a way of making people feel special, John. And I was talking to Mark before this. So Mark Meyer is on our team at Earfluence, and he was the producer for the show. Like I sometimes get the credit. He did all the work, to be honest with you.
And honestly, he was the coolest guy in the room.
He was the coolest guy in the room.
He's a punk man. He's,
a comedian. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But he was saying how, John, you made him feel special. Like, you immediately took an interest in him. And I think that's one of your superpowers, is your ability to make people feel special. And that was the case when we reached out to Sean right away too.
Oh, and so with that said, Jason, like, you've had the experience of doing podcasts, a lot of podcasts, but what do you think the main difference is between a podcast and a book? Like, what is, like, they're fundamentally different.
Oh yeah, it's a huge difference. When you're on a podcast or a live event like this, it's a true conversation. And when you're and you can make mistakes. Like, I just made a mistake and I kind of rambled there, and that's fine. When you're doing a book, it has to be perfect, and the pronunciation has to be exactly right, and the inflection has to be exactly right. And sometimes it takes multiple takes. And John, I mean, you thank so many people at the end. and bless Sean, a lot of those were not English names. and Sean took his time, asked you how to say these names and everything. So the fact that it has to be perfect is a lot different.
Yeah, credit goes to my journalism professors at UNC. They said your credibility will go away if you mess up a name upon pronunciation. And John was very gracious to make it easy. And I think, speaking back to what you said, John, about the intimacy, the energy in the room with us four. And, there were 2 times that I had to stop recording, because there's several pivotal moments in this book, but there were 2 that just kind of hit me as I'm reading it aloud. And we all just had to stop and kind of share the space. And I truly believe, Jason, you all at Earfluence, you've captured that in the audiobook. And I think what we witnessed, what we shared together, will be easily transferable to whoever you are listening to the audiobook, whether it's in your car by yourself, with your kids, with your partner, or running on a treadmill, or before you go to bed. John, your story is so incredible. And for your edification, I wanted to let you know that in the background of my home office, I have the hardcover book displayed right alongside, I mean this, right alongside Unbroken, that Laura Hillenbrand book, because the what you overcame and how you process it with your internal monologue to the reader, to the listener, is something that it's just remarkable. It really is.
That's so kind of you to say, and again, I think that's the hope of it. Which was beautiful.
Danielle Maber from District C stopped me today and said, did you all produce John Samuel's audiobook? And I was like, yeah, we did. She's like, that's so cool. And I asked her, I was like, what's the most memorable story from it? And I think it's going to be common for a lot of people that have read the book or listened to the audiobook, is the Mount Kilimanjaro story. So, that right there is just unbelievable, John. I was rereading that this morning, and there's just so many stories of obstacles overcome. And again, going back to that theme of people doubt that I can do this, but I'm going to prove them wrong. And it was just fantastic to read and to listen to. Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting because, Jason, you've heard my story, I don't know, half a dozen times at least. At least I would say more than that, because a number of podcasts and other events that you and I have shared together, and but I think Kilimanjaro is one of those stories I often gloss over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't even I was talking to a grad school friend of mine this past week who just finished the book and wanted to talk through it. And again, he also was like, oh, I didn't realize how close to grad school you finished climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. And he thought it was something I had done way back earlier in my life when I had more sight. And I think that's something that I think I overlooked that, and that the experience of that and overcoming that, I think, because that mentality, I think, has stuck with me as we built Ablr. And it's something I'm really, I need to give it a little bit more. I need to spend more time thinking about that and talking about it, because it is something. And I think because that's where that drive came from.
It shows your adaptability, which translates well to how Ablr has grown. And you get to see that origin story. You get to hear that origin story in this book, because when you were climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, you were exposed to the roughest conditions across every biome, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And folks don't realize that when you think, I didn't realize that when I thought about Mount Kilimanjaro, that you were in, a very rainy, muddy situation, and then a very arid, desert-like situation. And you just ran the gamut while going up at an extreme incline with, your good friend and the two porters who were making it possible for you.
Yeah. But, we talk about it, those porters doubted me, right? And I think that's, almost synthesized my whole life, right? Like, it's like people doubting what I can do because of my sight, and then trying to prove them wrong, and to do it for myself, not only just to prove other people wrong, but to do it myself and to prove to myself that I can do this.
And I think you give grace. You give grace to people who will listen or read your book and who think that, they have to prove themselves, or they're angry at external forces because of the doubt. You give grace to those to say those feelings are okay, because we get to walk through your progression, and sometimes just they rise even still. And it's just to be able to look at oneself and to forgive oneself for having those feelings or understanding it, and then knowing that you can push yourself. In my mind, to borrow the terminology of the porters, you are a lion, if not you person, right?
Well, thank you. Thank you for considering me as a lion, because sometimes you don't think that way, right? There's days that I think all of us, doubt ourselves. And I think that, I hope, this comes through, Jason, is like that this isn't just a story of someone going blind, but someone, all of us go through challenges in our lives. And I think you see that in a lot of your stories, right?
No.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And, we really want people to go out there. And, Sean, have you listened to it yet?
I have, in the car periodically since it hit, we've put it on. And it's one of those things where when I was in broadcasting, and whenever I'd be driving and I would hear a commercial on a radio station, I would say, that guy sounds so familiar. Who is that? And then, well, that's me. It still kind of hits me like that, because again, it's your words. And so it's been kind of fun for my friends and family to kind of to learn something, to listen, but also to kind of hear how I interpreted with your help.
Yeah.
Just the cadence and speed of certain things and the emotional gravitas of the moment. But what I would really love for you to share with everyone watching, share the story that you shared with Jason and me just before we went live, because it's putting you in a different light for those most close to you. And that really struck me.
Yeah. So last night, my wife was traveling, so it was me and the boys, Eli and Ethan, and getting ready for bedtime, and we decided to listen to some audiobooks. And we said, "Oh, why don't we see if Don't Ask the Blind Guy for directions available on Audible?" And we did it. And they first started getting excited, like, by John Samuel. They got, "Oh my gosh!" They're like, "Daddy, that's you, that's you." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And then we start the book, and you hear Sean talking, and the book starts off with me driving, and my sons have, they don't have experience of me driving. They only know mommy as the main family driver, and so like, "Daddy, you shouldn't be driving. What are you doing? The car's gonna get beat up. It's gonna be all rusty from the rain." I was like, "Oh, no worries, don't worry. It's all fine." And they were so excited about seeing me in a whole new light, and it was, they were on the edge of it. And again, that free sample went out, so we had to go get the new one. So I had to get the audiobook. So everyone, you should go get the audiobook, because Eli and Ethan think it's the coolest thing, and I can't wait to share this experience with them, because you've brought to life this very special thing that now can be accessible to my boys. They don't have to wait till they can read; they can actually start listening to it today. And my wife went to Chicago. She was traveling yesterday because my mother-in-law is undergoing. She had some breast cancer surgery yesterday, and what she was looking forward to is, during her recovery, is listening to this book. So thank you for giving her that ability to do that. So both of you, I can't thank you enough. I know, Sean, please tell your friends and family thank you, because they must be so tired of me by now, because the amount of practice you were doing and putting into reading for this, they've had to have heard this story, I don't know, hundreds of times. Now, if you have it in the car, they must be like, "Oh my gosh, we're tired of this blind guy."
To listen. I wasn't just pressing play and subjecting folks, but in all seriousness, I have still the manuscript copy. I'm holding it up, Johnny.
Oh, cool.
Of what we all worked on, the exact copy, the one that you signed.
Yes.
And this was fun because just going back to your boys, they're so young now, and they're looking at you in a new light.
Yes.
But as they follow your story, as we all did, your young adulthood, when they are in high school, it'll be interesting for them to either looking back on, or in the moment reading or hearing about what was going through your mind with challenges. And then when you go to New York City, when you go overseas and build a company, it's such a special memoir insight into who you are, very personal, very intimate, something that I just believe strongly that at the very least your sons are going to really treasure this. And I'm just so honored, along with Jason and with Mark, for the audio, to be a part of sharing that with you and your family.